What's up, sprinters? Welcome back to another video. Today we need to have a serious conversation, and that conversation being the understanding of basic macro that every player needs to know. Okay, so let's start off with the basics of understanding macro rotations and what you should be doing throughout a game. So there are key points throughout the game, the first one being 7 minutes on the clock. At 7 minutes, you see Regieleki spawn, and you see the Reggie's down bot spawn, right? What's the key for this? I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. You see those two spawn, okay? Now what we have determined just from playing over the last couple of months with the new map is that Regieleki is the most important objective. It's much better than anything that can be offered down on bot lane. So what we've been doing is we'll see 5 people come up, and these are just placeholder units, but we'll see 5 people come up versus 5 people at 7 minutes. Usually around this time, the junglers are hitting level 9, so in this case, let's just say Cinder versus Greninja. The Cinder is going to be hitting level 9, the Greninja is going to be hitting level 9, thanks to the increased amount of XP on the map. So, that being said, we're going to have a team fight here, right? And this is going to determine who gets the Rotom. Now, this is obviously influenced by other factors, such as maybe purple side lost a pad, or maybe red side lost a pad. Maybe they both lost pads. Who knows? We don't know how it played out, but we're here now. So, this team fight is extremely, extremely important. You need to be all 5 up here for this objective. Going bot does nothing for you. Okay? Yeah, sure, maybe you get the objective. But then you just lose your pad, you lose the Regieleki, and then this starts being pushed into here. And when the enemy jungler has level 9, he's just going to press his alt button on your pad, and you're probably going to lose that too. So in hindsight, is going down for this objective and getting some points on this pad really worth it? Not really. Now, there's an alternative where if you think you're going to lose this fight, you instead pull 5 people down here and then go for this pad, go for this objective. That's fine. Maybe go into the jungle. But as a basis, the general thing to do, you come up top, you fight this objective, right? You can get insane value because let's say you break this pad before you get the objective. And then you take the objective and you push it all the way in here. By this point, you probably have 2 ults because you won the fight and you have your jungler who's level 9. Maybe he didn't ult in the fight. But you should have 2 to 3 ults going for this pad. The enemy team is going to be behind. They're not going to have ults to defend it. So if you just blow ults on this pad right here, chances are you're getting this Regieleki in and you can break the pad. Now, getting 2 pads down at this point in the game is really, really good because we're looking at maybe 6 minutes. There's 2 pads down. Then that opens up the map. So let's briefly talk about lines. Let's say the map state looks like this, right? Your team has their top pad and bot pad. You just took the Regieleki and you knocked out 2 of their pads. There are invisible lines that determine what you own of the map. And those lines go from basically, it starts off here based on the pads, right? And so now when you take the first pad, that line moves to here. And then when you take the second pad, that line moves to here. Roughly speaking. So if you take the Regieleki and you break these 2 pads, then this entire quadrant of the enemy jungle is now yours to do with whatever you want. You can take the red buff. You can take their Audinos, right? If you can push up with teammates and take these mini objectives because you broke their pad. There's nothing to stop them. There's no health regen. You're stronger. They can't contest you. So in essence, you own this part of the map now. And in owning that part of the map, well, you just cut off half of the enemy team's farm. And that's really, really good. Because now you can stop them from farming and stop them from catching back up. Now, immediately after this Regieleki play, you want to be, after you break this pad, or let's say you get contested and you can't break it, you want to start heading right down here. You want to crash your excess points into this pad, and hopefully breaking it, And then from this pad, you want to go straight to the Reggie, whatever it is. Ice, steel, rock, whatever. You want to go get this objective. Take the objective off the map. It gives a small amount of XP and a good buff. Chances are, after this play, you will have this buff for the next Regieleki fight if you don't die. Meaning you're going to be even stronger. So from that point, when you see... At this point, we're probably looking at about 5 minutes on the clock after this has been taken. The Regieleki is going to be respawning soon. Let's just say 30 seconds. And now you have 1 pad down, 2 pads down, 3 pads down. So you've built up a substantial lead of almost 300 points. And you have this Reggie buff for the next Regieleki fight. You win that, and this one can push home. At this point, it's only 5 minutes into the game, and the game's pretty much been secured. You've pretty much just won. In a situation like this, in competitive play, you lose. On this map, you lose. Because there's no zap. It's Rayquaza. Rayquaza is good, but can still be stopped. If you're looking at a 300-point deficit this early on at the game, and you can't find a way back into the game, which is very hard on the new map, you just lose. So, that's basically a basic understanding of just macro rotations, and we'll go over it one more time. Go back to 7 minutes. You're 5 up here for the Regieleki fight. You have 2 options, right? After you take the Regieleki, you can either push it, or you can come straight down here and take this pad and do this objective. If you're really far ahead, you can do both. You can take this, push this into the tier 2, and then you can come down here, take this pad, and take the objective. And from that point, you are astronomically ahead of the enemy team. You should be roughly 2 to 3 levels up a piece, and there should be realistically no way the enemy team comes back, provided you don't get caught out randomly. So now that we've gone over basic macro, let's talk about jungle clear. So this looks a little different on this map, but bear with me. So we have our red buff here, and our blue buff here, and then we have our 2 ball toy camps here and here. Okay? So what your basic jungle clear is, you're coming out, let's say you're playing Greninja, right? So your Greninja, you're going to come out, you're going to come over the wall, you're going to hit the Xatu, and then you're going to path up or down to your buff, depending on which lane you want to gank. Now, me on stream, I end up just always going to the red buff and just doing a C-shaped clear like this, pathing out into mid, and then pathing up to top, or bot. Gives me more options. But as a basic clear, I would suggest that you go whichever buff you want to go first, you're ganking the opposite lane. So if you're starting blue buff, you're going to end your clear up top side, and you're going to gank top side. If you are starting red buff, you're going to clear in a C, and you're going to end up on bot side, and then you're going to gank bot side. And in solo queue, whichever lane is easiest to gank is the one you should go for. So let's say there's like a Guardy. Let's say there's a Guardy and a Cinderace in lane here. And then let's say there's like a Pikachu and a Snorlax down bot lane. Well, you're gonna want to gank top lane. Ralts and Scorbunny are very easy kills in the early game, especially for high damage junglers. But that being said, you know, you go for your first gank. Let's say you knock out the bees, right? And then you go back into your jungle. Right? You go back into your jungle. You go take your blue and you go back up. And then once you've cleared your camps, you're looking to be in mid for the 8-minute bees. You take these bees, and then you look to see if you can help either top lane or bot lane, depending on which lane is overextended. Because if we see here a Snorlax and a Pikachu pushed up, and your teammates are down here trying to defend it, well, you as a jungler can just come straight in behind them and give them a terrible time. And let's say in that same scenario, your teammates, or the enemy team is back here, well, then there's nothing for you to do here except for dive, and diving is risky. We don't like diving. You can only dive when you're significantly far ahead. So the better play is to come down here. But after all of that, you go for a third jungle clear, and you should be able to, because by the time you leave this lane, if you've been efficient, you take the bees at 8 minutes, and then you come down to the lane that's overextended, and then you gank them. You go back into your jungle for your third clear at around 7:30. Your blue buff should be respawning in around 10 seconds. You do another clear. You end up top lane at like 7:05 for the Rayquaza. You should be level 9, and your team is in a very good spot. Now that we've gone over jungling in the early game, let's talk about laning. Laning is one of the most fundamental concepts in Unite you really, really desperately need to understand. So, we're going to do a standard top lane. Let's go back to 1-1-3, where we just had 2 Lucarios. Okay, that's all that was in top lane, 2 Lucarios. So what we have now, we have a Bunnelby here, Bunnelby here, Bunnelby here, and Bunnelby here, and we have a Baltoy right here. So it's the same as the old map, right? So what you're going to see a lot of the time, and we can actually do this for 2-on-2. Let's just say each side has a Pikachu. I know Pikachu isn't really played right now, but let's just say each side has a Pikachu. So the correct way to play out this lane, if you're playing someone with stacks, like Lucario, you're fighting over this. Both people are heading... But both sides of the lane are heading towards this Baltoy in the center, right? Because both people are trying to get that contested XP. From frame 1, if you're not heading to the center farm to get the contested XP, you are intentionally losing your lane, whether you know it or not. You need to go after the contested farm before you go for the safe farm. The safe farm will always be there. The contested farm won't be. So, that being said, both teams are going to come out and fight over this Baltoy. And, you know, whoever gets it has a small advantage. But then you're going to see something interesting happen. So, traditionally, as the Lucarios move forward, right, they'll swap sides. And they'll go to get their stacks. So, what you'll see now is the second person in the lane will be trying to contest the farm of the enemy laner. So you'll have this, for example, on this side, you have your Lucario and their Pikachu. Their Pikachu is constantly harassing your Lucario and trying to contest their farm, while your Lucario is trying to secure the farm and get its dunks. And you're going to see this mirrored on both sides, because the win condition of the lane is to get the most XP on your side as possible and deny the enemy Lucario, the enemy stacking Pokemon, their stacks, right? You don't want them to get their attack weight stacks, because then they just do more damage, they start to run away with the game. So that's what this basic top lane looks like. And from then on, you know, your jungler comes up, you take bees, and then from then on, it's just more of the same until Rayquaza spawns. Bot lane is a little bit different. So bot lane, typically you'll see a tanky Pokemon. Let's just go back to Season 1 days and do Snorlax Cram. Let's do Snorlax Cram mirrors, right? So, but it's relatively the same. So right now we have farm here, we have farm here, we have farm here, we have farm down here, and one more piece down here, with another one that spawns right here later on. And I also forgot at 9:20 this one also spawns on top lane. Anyway. So the first thing you should be doing when you're playing bot lane, don't go for this. Don't go for this. Go straight for this one right here. Right here. The contested farm is the most important thing you can go for, is this contested farm. If you get this, this allows you to push forward. You just got the XP. You push forward. You deal damage. These guys have to back up. They lost the objective. If they fight you, they're probably going to lose. They're down on XP. You're going to be hitting your power spike sooner. You have the ability to force them out because you got the farm and you have an advantageous position in the fight. So once this middle farm's gone, you're looking, as a duo, to push up to either one of these farm. Either this one or this one. And that's entirely dependent on where the enemy team goes. If the enemy team goes for this one right here, then you want to match them and go for this one and out-secure them. If they go for this one down here, you want to do the same. Now, let's say there's a situation where you lose the middle farm. What should you do? take 5 seconds, pause the video, go down in the comments, let me know what you think you should do, timestamp the video, and now we'll get into it. So if you lose this farm, obviously your first thing is you need to back up. You need to back up and you need to get to safety. What you're going to see commonly is the enemy is going to go for your next piece of farm. So in that case, you just have to try and out-secure while dealing damage to them. Good examples of this, let's just say Pikachu is very, very good at pressing the A button on the enemy team, right? These guys come up here, or even Cramorant, but Cramorant's a little different, so we'll use Pikachu for this example. So Pikachu is very, very good at just pressing A on the enemy and securing when it's low, thanks to the use of Thundershock. So you want to be constantly harassing the enemy while they get the farm lower, and then when it gets into your range, you want to burst the farm to secure it, and then keep pressing on, because now you see this Snorlax right here, he's at like 50% HP, because you've been auto-attacking him the whole time, and then you secured the farm. Well, now, you and your tank, who are at 100% HP, the attacker's at 100% HP, and the tank's at 50 HP, or 50%, you have such a huge advantage, you're able to walk forward. It's a pretty common concept, right? It's very easy to understand. But that being said, bot lane is more of a contest the farm lane than top lane. So we'll go over and we'll wrap this up. Basically, in top lane, you're going to see people fight over the middle farm, and then the stackers are going to break away to farm on the opposite side of the map. And then in bot lane, you're going to see people contest the middle farm, and then whichever side gets the farm is going to push into the next piece of farm to try and secure that away from the enemy. And in doing so in bot lane, you create an insurmountable lead. Because let's say you're playing Mew, right? You get this farm, and you get this farm. Now all of a sudden, you have your 2 safe farm to fall back on, and the enemy has nothing. They have to try and get that scrap of farm right here in the middle when it spawns. And in that, you're seeing a level difference of about roughly 5 to 3 on bees, just from getting all the farm in the lane. So you don't have to kill people in Unite. You don't have to kill the enemy Pokemon in order to get a crazy, disgusting lead, right? If you show up level 5 for bees in the lane, and then let's say your enemy jungler shows up level 5 as well, well, now it's more of an even fight, even though you're outnumbered, because you're so far ahead. All right, now that we've gone over laning, we're going to talk a little bit about objective priority. It's not going to be too long. It's basically the same old, same old. So I touched on this in the first section, but objective priority, Regieleki is the most important thing. After Regieleki, we went over the macro rotation. You go here, and then you take the bot objective. On the new map, top objective is always more important than the bottom objective. Always, always, always. Regieleki is OP. It does insane damage. It almost guarantees a pad. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, little Regieleki down, or little Reggie down here doesn't really do anything. It gives you a little bit of XP and a little buff. That's it. So always go for Regieleki. All right, let's go over a little bit about rotations. So what we're going to be doing, and how I'm going to explain this. Rotations are very, very simple, right? Simply put, it is where you walk to on the map, right? So if you decide you're in top lane and you decide to go down bot lane, you rotated bot lane. And vice versa. If you're bot lane and you decide to go top lane, you've rotated top lane. So let's talk about these rotations and how to make good use of them. So very common standard rotations that we still don't see in solo queue 15 months after the game's release, which we should, but there hasn't been much educational content out there. What we need to see is at the 7-minute mark, you need to start implementing rotations. This is the absolute latest point in the game you can start implementing rotations. The reason being Regieleki is spawning, like we discussed previously in the video. We need to see our bot laners come up, not at 7 minutes. We need to see them start making their way up from bot lane at 7:15. Now, if you're playing, this time is a little tighter for competitive players because you can actually reach the lane at like 7:11 or 7:12. You have a little more time to work with, but that's because of the hyper efficiency of competitive players. For your standard solo queue player, you want to leave this lane at 7:15. By then, the bees are usually gone. If they're not, just finish them up. Chances are the enemy team's not going to start this on spawn. But once you get these bees down here, you need to start rotating up top. Reason being, once again, Regieleki is the most important objective on the map. And whoever gets this objective gets a huge lead throughout the game. Right? As we discussed with being able to break this pad, and then make the rotation down to break this pad, and take this objective. That's 300 points, and this objective that gives XP and a buff, all for one Regieleki. Now that's good value. So on top of that, after we take the Regieleki, we're going to go over a little bit about what each role should be doing. So let's say we take the Regieleki, we break these two pads. Wonderful. At this point, your jungler, let's say you're Cinderace, your jungler needs to hit his down arrow on his controller. He needs to recall, go back to base, and start clearing his jungle again. He needs to, because the next objective is on bot side, you're going to be looking to do it from the top side down to the bot side and exit through the bot side. That way you're closer to the objective. When you finish your clear, you waste less time getting there. And you're still getting your XP, you're still getting fed. The rest of the team, you're going to leave one person to cover top lane. Traditionally, it's your attacker, such as a Pikachu, who was initially laning bot lane for the first phase of the game. But you're going to leave there. In more common meta, it would be something like Mew. You'd leave Mew up top side and just leave them to protect back caps. This can also be your Lucario in some cases, your Serena, your Aegislash, whatever your top lane character is. That being said, the other three teammates, we're going to the jungle. We're going to the enemy jungle. We already crashed the Regieleki into this pad. And if you remember from earlier in the video, we own this map now. This is ours. This all belongs to us. And we're all here to take it. So we're going to be taking the red buff, we're going to be taking the ball toys, and we're going to be taking the blue buff. What this does is it sets their jungler extremely far behind. So if the jungler was already having trouble hitting 9 and doesn't decide to clear his jungle from the time you get this to the time it gets here, well, then you have a free jungle to just take as you please. Now, 9 times out of 10, there's always going to be camps in here. And those are yours to eat. You earned them. You got this pad in, you earned it. Take those camps. Typically, this will be your top laner. Let's say Lucario in this instance. This will be your Lucario, your tank player, and your support. So in recent meta, that would be Mime. And, you know, let's just say Hoopa. Let's throw it back a little bit, right? I don't know. You get the idea. They're just placeholders. You get the idea. You three would go through the jungle. You take this camp, this camp, this camp, this camp, and you go down bot lane. By the time you three are done taking all these, your jungler is already backed, finished this, you're all meeting down bot lane now, your top laner is defending pad, and you have no weaknesses in your defense. The enemy team can try and push up here and score, but hey, there's a Mew here, what are you going to do? Or they can come down here and try and match you, well, they're already significantly behind, so if they try and match you down in bot lane, they're just going to die and you get even further ahead. Because now you can just, especially if you take them out, you can just take this pad, you take the objective. Now they're even further behind. They have no farm in their jungle because you just took it all. And this allows you to actually push up for these farm as well. And on top side, during the Regieleki push, there's obviously instances where these two are going to be taken by the enemy team, but you might be able to snipe that one away. But just like that, just from denying all of this farm, Your jungler will come down to the objective. You fight a team fight. Your jungler is going to be level 12 at this point. He's going to be so massively far ahead. He's going to be level 12. Meanwhile, the enemy jungler, he's looking at maybe level 9. That's a gap. That is a pretty big gap. Right? Your Lucario, maybe he's level 11. Their Lucario, 8. And you see where I'm going with this. Because we took this pad, and this pad, and abused rotations, we abused good macro play and fundamentals, we all of a sudden took away so much farm on the map from the enemy team and gave it all to ourselves. And now they have 2 pads. They have hardly any XP to get. Regieleki spawning in like 45 seconds. And the enemy team wants to throw up a surrender vote because the game is basically over. Alright, so we've talked about basic macro, jungle clear and laning, objective priority, and rotations. Well, now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The big green snake! Rayquaza! It's fun. It's a cool mechanic. You know, getting a shield that allows you to score quicker is super, super good. Definitely more balanced than Zap. But anyway, so we need to look at how we want to position for Rayquaza, what we want to do, and how to take Rayquaza in general. So let's look at it from the view of Purple Team. So let's go back a patch, and let's pull out the meta team comp that everyone is running. If I can even. I don't know how updated this is. And it doesn't seem to be very. Yeah, we don't see Glaceon. Okay, so it's not very updated. So we'll just use Sylveon as a placeholder. So we have Glaceon in the jungle, Charizard in the top lane, and that Charizard is met with a Snorlax as well. And then in the bot lane, you have Mime and Mew. Mime, and we'll just use Pikachu as Mew. So those are your 5 characters. Now, what you have here is you have a front line with Snorlax and Mime. You have a high damage tanky top laner with Charizard, Glaceon, a hyper carry jungler, and Mew, a really strong bot lane attacker. The way you want to see these characters position for Zap, you want to, well, I guess Rayquaza now, you want to see your team take, well, first off, you want to start taking position at Zap at 2:30, or Rayquaza at 2:30. You want to start setting up. Around, in competitive play, around like 2:15, you're seeing a fight break out in mid. Because each team is fighting for position. And so, when you win that fight, this is what you're looking to have. You're looking to have your top laner cover the top side of the map. Right? You want your top laner covering the top side. You want your Snorlax to be able to protect your Glaceon and your Mew. And Mew would sit in this bush. Mew has so many options from here. Glaceon wants to play super far back behind the tank. Tank can push up with the Mime. Mime can maybe play in this bush. And now we have control of the pit. Charizard's watching for the back cap here. And Mew's watching for the back cap here. So your top laner is watching for the back cap. Your bot lane is watching for the back cap. And now you have a really good way to defend not only Rayquaza, but your pads. So you don't just lose to back caps and you don't lose the bird. So that being said, now that we've assumed the position, we need to talk about how to take it. How to take the bird. So there's a couple of things that you could do, right? And I'm gonna draw a little bit on the map here because there's actually an entrance right here and there's actually an entrance right here. This is walled off. And then we'll do the same here. This is walled off. Just to give you a representation of the new map. So, what you want to do, if you're looking to take this, well, if you first off, if you've set up a position like this, you're already ahead in this game. The game state probably looks like this, to be honest, with these 3 pads down. That being said, do not touch this snake. You're 300 points plus up. You do not need to touch the snake. Let's say across these two pads, these guys scored 50. Let's say here you overcapped by 20, and here you overcapped by 30. So let's see, this is 80. 80 plus 20 is 100, right? And then you scored 130 on that pad, so that's 230. And then now you have to factor in the additional 80 points. So 310. Can't do math. 310. So you scored 310 points to their 50. Why are you touching this? Are you trying to throw the game? Don't throw the game. Don't touch it. You have a 260 point lead. That's hard to make up. If your team is watching backups and holding zap position, that is a hard lead to make up. Don't do it. Don't touch the snake. It's a bad idea. Bad idea. Okay? Just wait for the enemy team to come in, because they will come in, because they have to get the objective. Be patient. Wait for them to come in. And once they come in and they step up, that's when your Snorlax can go here, your Mime can walk in, your Glaceon can walk up in one shot, and this works with any Pokemon that has any form of engage. Your Charizard, if they're topside, can catch them out with his ult. There's so many different things. But if they end up walking in with this much of a point gap, right, 260, and the levels are probably looking like 14 or 15 on Glaceon, 13 on Zard, 13 on Mew, and their jungler's probably looking at like 12, and we're probably 11-11, right? You're gonna win that fight. You're gonna win that fight. So don't hit this ever in solo queue. It's a very bad idea. Very, very bad idea. Now, lastly, we'll go over how to take the pit and how to take the bird. So let's say the enemy team, and let's get rid of some of these. Let's get rid of some of these arrows here. Clean up the map a little bit. Okay. So let's say you are on the red side team now. The enemy team is taking this position. You don't know where they are. You have no means of seeing them. What you should be doing is you need to pick a direction and go as 5 people, right? You don't want to clump up so that you get bursted by AoE, but you want to be able to enter the pit. The only exception here is maybe your Lucario goes out on a flank angle and the 4 of you push in here. Your goal is to just get in the pit. Once you're in the pit, you have options. Your Lucario can come up here and scout for information, as well as try and catch out a squishy. Your Ball of Death here can push in, start hitting the bird from over the wall, look to clear the top side of the pit, which is the safest option. You should always try and clear the top side of the pit when you enter the pit. And then once you've assumed control of topside, that's when you can start hitting this bird and trying to secure it for your team. Now, this is a situation where you're behind. You are now the ones with 50 points against 310. You are the ones with levels 12, 11, 11 to their 14, 13, 13. You have no choice in this situation but to rip the bird. So you're going to come in, you're going to clear the top side, and maybe you're lucky. Maybe you get a pick. Maybe you land like a Slowbro ult on an unsuspecting Charizard. Nice. You got a pick. Huge. Now, hit this and hope to secure, because you're probably still not winning the 4v5 fight because you're that far behind. Now in solo queue, here's the great thing. Here's a great thing about solo queue. If you catch out this Charizard, you have a really good chance to win this fight, because your teammates will have cooldowns, and then you can start hitting them. The enemy team will want to hit you or be confused and not know what to do, so they'll run into you, and then you just kill them. And then you can pick them off and win the game in a 5v4 situation. Which is super, super good. But the core principle still stands. You want to send your Lucario on a flank. You come in for top side or bot side. It all depends. And the dependency is on the enemy team's pads. So in this game, they have all 5. Right? You have 1 bot side. So what it would actually look like is your Lucario is coming in from top side. You guys are entering through bot. Because you have a pad close enough to here. Right? If the enemy team had a pad down here, you would see the majority of the team coming up here to enter through topside, because there's no pad for the enemy team to run to, so it makes the fight easier for the losing team. And let's go over one more thing really, really quickly, just before we end off this video. The last thing we need to talk about is when it's okay to burn Rayquaza. This is a golden rule for solo queue. Competitive, it's more situational, but in solo queue, here is your golden rule. If there are 3 members of the enemy team or more alive, don't do the bird. Do not touch it. This doesn't exist if there's 3 members or more alive. However, if there are 2 or less members of the enemy team alive, rip this and get it off the map as soon as possible. Because if they only have 2 people on the enemy team to steal, it's very unlikely that they're going to against 5 of you. So get this off the map as fast as possible. Don't let the enemy team come back into the game. Just get the objective off the map, go score, call it a day. Hey guys, if you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. There'll be more educational content in the future, and I hope today you learned something in the video. If you did, make sure to share it with your friends. Get them to understand the basics of macro rotations and what they can do to bring their game up to the next level. I'll see you guys in the next one.